Hi. Yeah, I was just going to talk about seeing the new Superman and just give you a bit of a review. I mean, you've already mostly seen all the reviews, but I was wanting to talk about it in more of a political way and in the kind of current pop culture way, in a way that no one is talking about. So I'm kind of interested in how um, this dynamic between the Snyderverse and this new Superman and all the comic book community and all the superhero fandom nerd groups are going, what's going on? I don't understand. Well, what's going on is that the Snyder cult is kind of what's left over. All the Gamergate, all the anti-woke, all the manosphere, all the sort of co-opted fandom for this hardcore right-wing fascist ideal of the sort of Ubermensch. And now I'm not saying Snyder is a fascist. Far from it, he's an artist. He's a director. So, you know, he's just making art. He's just influenced by other artists and influences. So, yeah, he's just doing his thing. And he's said in interviews that he's never a comics book fan, and he's all about deconstructing. And he's a fan of was it the 300, and that stuff, which is totally fascist coded. If you look on Twitter, they're all talking about Spartans, and they're all called. I mean, the main Nazi himself, Elon Musk, does all this sort of Greco-Roman fascist signalling. And that's what this sort of manosphere and Jim Bro culture, it's attached itself to the fandom and to Snyder. And of course, the fandom's calling it the Snyder cult. But what this is, are fascists. They're fascist coded. I mean, they're all sort of on that level. They really hate women. They really hate people who look like me, who are not, who are not the mainstream sort of white person. So they cry about black characters in games, or trans characters, or minority characters, or anything that isn't a sort of bulky white dude. you know, Even though none of them sort of fill out the ideal, but yeah, because they see their self worth through their race, which is ridiculous. It's just so stupid and childish. That's what many of these guys are. They're like hitting their 30s, and they're still like caught in this arrested development. That's hard know, to not understand with the internet culture. I mean, it's all very childish, you know. But I came back to this film. I was an original 1978 fan as a kid, and I loved it. And Christopher Reeve's portrayal stuck with me. And then I looked back into Superman because I'd read it as a comics, and then I'd seen the film as a kid, and then I sort of as a kid looked stuff up in the old-fashioned way. into the library, used the Dewey Decimal System, and looked up a book. And, there are a lot of histories and fan stuff of Superman. Even at that time, it's, developed in the 30s, from two Jewish immigrants. That's what sort of got me into this movie because, the right wing, all these um, Nazi dickheads like the Critical Drinker and Midnight's Edge here on all the movie reviewers. That's the other thing. You can't say now, 2025, oh yeah, you got to keep the politics out of it. The fuck are you talking about? It's all politics now. It's all politics. All movie reviews, all gaming reviews have been used for the past 10 years as culture war issues. You can't say that. You can't say, oh man, I stay out of the politics. That's what all these, Nazis say as a disclaimer. But now all this sort of pop culture is very political. And it's been weaponized by the right. And this is the first time where a leftist has done, taken it back. Because the image of Superman has always been anti-colonial, anti-fascist. In the original comic run, he was taking out strike breakers. He was taking out slumlords and factory bosses. Corrupt factory bosses who weren't paying their workers and trying to get scab labour in, you know, to undermine unionism. you know, Superman was doing that. He was fighting on the side of the unions because it was the Great Depression. And then during the war, he fought against, he was used as a figure to fight against fascism. And now, in the 21st century's iteration of fascism, um, with Trump in the White House, oppressing South Park, and, controlling media, doing the basic fascist stuff. Um, Here we have James Gunn's Superman. And, he had punk. He says it, I'm a punk rocker. You know, and then the end credits uh, with the um, punk rocker featuring Iggy Pop, the godfather of punk. It was a clear message, man. It was a clear message. Superman does not belong to the right. Superman is not a fascist, aloof alien god, burdened down with with humanity. No, Superman is an uplifting figure, a protector. There have been associations because there are Jewish um, creators and authors um, that there's been um, more than one person who's connected the image of Superman between um, the uh, Golem of Prague and Diablo 4 players would know what a golem is. So a golem is a creature from the Talmud, I believe, and it's made of clay. It's an inanimate sort of automaton, and a rabbi can create one, and you know summon it by writing one of the names of God and placing it in the mouth of the golem. that's what the Golem of Prague was. It protected um, the Jewish community against pogroms. So, yeah, and it's association. There have been some associations drawn with that, and also with Moses, you know, a protector. That's it. Um, so, yeah, and the way that James Gunn does it with bright comic book colours and, you know, uh, Cornsweat's portrayal of Superman is akin back to um, the original Christopher Reeve Superman. In fact, they had Crypto, the super dog there. I mean, it's totally contrasts with you had like what's the Homeland's U.S. Homeland Security person, Christy Nome, who infamously um, shot her puppy, shot a puppy because it was a burden, you know. And you see in the Snyderverse, they're all going on about, oh, what's the point of crypto, the critical drinker at Midnight's Edge and all these Nazi losers. They can't understand why anyone would have a pet. And they all hate Supergirl. You know, it just reeks of fascism. You know, the way these guys look at the world and the way they talk about the characters, it just says, oh, these guys are just fucking Nazis. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. They're all disgusting slob Nazis. And what that critical drinker guy, he made a fucking video. He made his own so-called movie. A pompous Scottish git who thinks he can do it than anyone else. But just like Ben Shapiro, because they're fascists, they don't understand how art works. You know, and so what's his shitty movie that he made, Rogue Elements, the critical drinker. But he's such a fucking narcissistic prick and Nazi. He still thinks he can carry on and criticize other people after he made a dog shit film, which is a load of shit. But he still sits in judgment of James Gunn. you know, just the unbelievable hypocrisy and narcissism of these losers. And they've lost the battle, um, because the obvious um, storyline of Baravia, which is law accurate, and by the way, older than the state of Israel, and the people of Jairampour are both all brown, and um, they're obviously a stand-in for the Palestinian people who are getting slaughtered by the day, and now they're being starved to death. A famine is happening, an actual famine is happening. Um, from last I checked, um, another 15 people have died just today, and they're deliberately doing this because everyone can see what they're doing, and all the Western governments and the US, especially the US, are involved. And that's what was so good about Superman. Superman wasn't standing up for the US government. Superman was standing up for humanity and international law. you know, um, the right always tries to co-opt leftist icons and subvert them. That's always been their way, and that's been the way of like with the reference to punks. They were anti-fascist punks. Um, there was a strong movement and subculture within the punk movement, and that's what they were, anti-fascist punks, skinheads. And then the neo-Nazis subverted that, and they came up with their own neo-Nazis, skinheads. So throughout the history, it's been this back and forth between left and right. And right now, in the propaganda war, um, James has just destroyed the Snyder, manosphere, alpha bro, misogynistic, woman-hating, little Nazi incel pricks in who hijacked the Snyder fandom. So yeah, may the Snyder cult rest in peace. That's all I got to say. Yeah, fuck off, Nazis. I want to drink your tears. So yeah, and just the way James Gunn dealt with on every level, the way the interaction between Lois Lane and Superman. You know, that's hey Snyderverse. That's what a real relationship looks like. You fucking incels. That's what a real relationship looks like. They look, you know, you you have your doubts and you try and work it out. That's how things are in the real world. Um, and the fact that he cared about a squirrel, yeah, a lot of people have pointed that out. You know, he's compassionate to all forms of living things. The kaiju. You know, he and being worrying about crypto, even though crypto was a pain in the ass and a naughty boy. But man, you know, he he certainly was a good boy when he was tearing Lex Luthor slash Elon Musk's face off. I mean, come on, Lex Luthor was Elon Musk. I mean, it was all, you know, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel. He was that person. You know, the, people never are picking up on the thing with the neural link thing, where he was putting chips into monkeys' brains, and monkeys were ripping their own face off, and the animal cruelty that was happening with Neuralink. You know, that's all. That's Elon Musk. Um, you know, these billionaires that don't care about the ordinary person. We're just plebs and NPCs and um, units of production for them. So yeah, the way he portrayed Lex Luthor. The only criticism I have is that Lex Luthor was much smarter than Elon Musk and more emotionally available. So there's that. But yeah, it was just a great movie, and it was totally punk, and it was anti-fascist, anti-colonial, and it sort of just totally drew a line under that sort of manosphere, Andrew Tate, um, fascist, Nazi iteration, sort of adjacent iteration of Superman. The people that are making Superman's DC, they have no idea about this. This is all internet culture. Um, but this is that's the crucible fandom where all the sort of racist Nazi Andrew Tate, fashion fit bros, liver king, idiots. Where's that guy? All the Joe Rogan fans who are just asking questions, and want to see something different. All that crew. Um, their their ideology, their worldview is being dismantled, and it's always through art. I mean, like even if you look back in the original Nazis, there was the Mac the Knife, there was the Halfpenny Opera, you know, this great sort of leftist sort of music and play and art piece, and a great song that was covered by Louis Armstrong. Um, but yeah, that's the job of art. Art is always left. It's always from leftists and socialists. You know, Nazis don't understand art, and they totally lost the battle. And good on James Gunn, and he's an anti-fascist, anti-colonial, because he made Superman's stand up, brought Superman back to his roots, and had him stand up against fascism. I mean, Bravia was doing a deal. You know, Bravia was doing a deal with Lex Luthor. It was exactly like what's going on now with Israel and Peter Thiel and Palantir. Exactly. It's one for one. So, hey, the gun never jams. I just found out that's an expression. And James Gunn, I didn't know you went that way, brother. But good on you. You're the man. You're the fucking man. You know, um, I think because of Trump and especially like with all this stuff in South Park and CBS, how he's basically taking bribes, legalized bribes through the settlement process in a court case. I mean, there was a bribe, and to close down Stephen Colbert, who I don't give a fuck about because he's not a leftist. He had to go at Zoran Mandani, Mandani at the on his show talking about Israel, wanting him to apologise for and say some you know Israeli talking point. Fuck the Zionists, bro. You know that's my purity test for you. If you support Israel, fuck you. Go to hell. You're not a you know you're not what all you you're not a Catholic. You're not a Christian. The Pope supports the current Pope and the last Pope support Palestine. You know, real ones support Palestine and the Gazan people. You know, it's always what this is about right now. I don't have power. I'm not a poor person. I don't have power. And this is all I can do. Um, so uh, yeah, that was my 2 cents. Good on James Gunn. Good on you, bro. I didn't know you were like that. You're a real one. Anyway, I'm out. Peace.